Hey, welcome back to Two Super Guys from Stocks. I'm Dylan.
And I'm Vinny, and today we're going to talk about the Federal Reserve minutes came out this week. We're going to see how big a liar Jerome Powell has been throughout this entire economic cycle. We're going to go back and look at some old data from 2021 to see just how wrong he was and whether or not he's going to be wrong in the future. We're going to talk about that in a second here.
Two stupid guys trade stocks.
All right.
He's a hero.
Yeah, I remember Warren Buffett called him a hero. Okay, I remember that. But we got some interesting stuff out this week. So the minutes from the Fed's December meeting came out, and the markets really had a rough start to 2024 so far, and this certainly hasn't helped it because this has added a little bit to the uncertainty going forward. We kind of knew the stage we were in, and now we're in a different stage. It looks like we're evolving, and now we're trying to get some guidance from the Federal Reserve, and they seem as clueless as two stupid guys trading stocks. Okay, that's saying something.
That's fair.
All right, so the meetings came out. They concluded interest rate cuts are likely in 2024, although they appeared to provide little in the way of when that might occur, according to the minutes from the Fed meeting. All right, they continued to hold the rate at 5.25 to 5.5%. Members indicated that they expected about three-quarter percentage point interest rate cuts in 2024, all right, by the end of the year. However, the meeting summary noted a high level of uncertainty over how or if that will happen. So not really sure.
So some of this I do think is lawyer statements, right? Like we're in
Okay.
medicine, right? So you
Yeah.
always have like go to the ER if, even if it's the most mild thing. I think if it will happen, I think it definitely is going to happen. The last little part of that is just like, hey, we told you, just in case.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yes.
Because there could be like a huge war. I don't know. Something happens. And
Yeah.
then now this
I mean,
whole picture's changed.
absolutely. This kind of reminded me of like asking your wife or girlfriend like where they want to have dinner. It's
I
like,
That is an
yeah, yeah,
accurate comparison.
yeah.
I would agree with that.
No, there's no good answer. You cannot get a good answer out of that situation. It just doesn't happen. All right. So in discussing the policy outlook, participants viewed the policy rate as likely at or near its peak of the trading cycle. All right. Though they noted that the actual policy path will depend on how the economy evolves. This is what Powell's been saying all along. It really depends on the data coming out. We've had some really positive improvement. Jobs numbers came out this week. There's now 1.4 available jobs per worker. At the peak of the pandemic, that was like 2.
Right.
So it's come down significantly from there, but there's still more jobs available than there are people to fill those roles. When you look at CPI and PCE, they both have come down. If you are willing to slice and dice and do something that's not really a standard metric, if you get the headline PCE for the last 6 months, we're like pretty close to being at goal. Okay. Now that's really just cherry picking data, though. All right, admittedly
Right.
so, because core PCE, which matters more, is not. We've had this tailwind from energy prices coming down, and same thing with CPI. It really depends on how you slice and dice it. Typically, you use a 12-month trailing, not a 6-month. Um,
Exactly.
they've made some progress. That's no doubt. I would say that no one at this point is going to argue that they haven't done well in controlling it, but we still have quite a ways to go. And that brought the labor market into better balance that we just talked about. Now, this is the dot plot, right? This is when the
Mm.
FOMC governors vote on where they think interest rates will be for different time period. So this is the most recent one published in the December meeting. So we got end of 2023, they knew where it was, that they just kept it flat. 2024, we're now in that year. 2025, 2026, and then longer run, where they think the baseline really should be.
There
If
is
you look,
one
what's up?
guy in 2025 who is
Yeah,
just going to be persistent no rate cuts.
I
It's got to be the same guy.
this guy is wrong, because if he's right, that's a dark picture.
That's a
Dark place.
really dark picture.
Yeah.
That's the stock market's not going to be happy at all. Dark picture.
No. No, 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 no. Yeah, and home prices are going to be coming down and stuff like that. That's a dark world that this guy sees ahead. Um, Now, this is where they're getting that those 325 basis point cuts for the next year is from this little group right here, that 4.5%. So that's what they're counting on. This is where most of the Fed governors are kind of clustered. And then going down into 2025, we continue to get more rate cuts, and then we don't actually reach like our longer run level until we're talking about 2026. So they're talking about still like 3 years of continued slow rate cuts. Like, does that actually happen? Probably not. That's ridiculous.
I don't think so. I will say he said multiple times you want to keep it higher for longer rather than go down too fast because then the 80s
Yep.
can happen, which is not great. Um, I think I can't remember the numbers, but there was a slide that you had earlier that was showing the probability at each Fed meeting of 2024 when there'll be a rate hike. I
Mhm.
think March had like a 30-ish per chance. I'm going to say
Yeah.
definitely no in March. I'm going to say maybe second half, June or May.
Really interesting. March is where they're cutting on the first one, basically, according to the CME options pricing. I want
Hmm.
to say
I think
the
it's too early.
yeah, yeah, that's an interesting thought. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to be honest if we did see one in March. The interesting thing I want to show you though is I want to show you the similar graph from 2021 to show you just how before the cycle started, just what their expectations were for what the cycle would look like. All right. So this is from the December meeting of 2021. The rates were still at zero. This is before they had done a single rate increase. They did first one in
Oof.
like February of 2022.
The
Um,
y-axis.
yeah, yeah. Look at this. They're basically looking at a peak, having 2024 have been, say, the peak, and we're looking at still a rate that was under 3%. Just to remind you, we're at 5.25 to 5.5 right now. All right.
So they were off by over double.
Yeah. I mean, if you were off at work by over double, do you think like most of your patients would do very well?
No, that would
No,
not do
no,
well. There's a lot
no.
of cases of that happening in
Yeah.
that we probably learned about in school.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty wild to me. Just to go back and just kind of show you the comparison of what they expected versus what they got. This is one of those great memes about what you ordered on Wish.com and what actually arrived in the mail. So this is what the Fed governors were expecting in 2021 to have kind of interest rates peak out below 3%, and this longer run rate of 2.5. What we actually saw happen was rates go all the way up into this almost mid 5% range. So I tried to adjust the scale so they could try to roughly approximate. But if you look at 4% here and 4% here, we would have been well off their chart by like 1.5% from their expectations going into this tightening cycle. How
It
wild is
w-
that?
it would be interesting. It's too early right now, but it maybe like a year from now is to compare because it's a very unique situation where every country had the exact same thing happen to it.
Yeah.
There's not many times in history where everyone has the same variable, right?
Mhm.
It would be interesting to see how America fared versus like the UK, which is not doing well,
Yeah.
Japan, Canada, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's too early to tell now, but that would be a cool video.
Yeah. I'm
I
looking
think they
forward to
made the
see it.
right call going to 5.5.
I completely agree. And the thing, only thing I can tell you, coming from this, that I think is relatively certain, is that what they're expecting here will not happen.
Yeah.
All right.
Hopefully, hopefully it doesn't happen with the top guy because that's
Yeah.
brilliant.
Absolutely. This reminds me of the great saying that I'll leave you with here from the poet Mike Tyson. Everyone has a plan till you punch him in the mouth. And yeah, Jerome Powell got punched in the mouth.
Fair enough. What a philosopher. All right. Bye,
Yeah.
guys.
Catch you next one.